So the DST, the deferred sales trust, was the best option in this scenario. We were able to mitigate all of the taxes of the capital gains. We were able to establish an income cash flow for life and for beneficiaries. And we were able to invest in a passive strategy. So
during COVID, we lost 56% of our business during COVID. However, what we did with all that space is we helped every local downtown business we could with free advertisement, and we helped save some. We didn't save them all, but we wanted to put the space to good use.
Welcome to the Build to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. And we believe that the key to scaling and compounding your wealth starts every single day with the mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal is to help you scale and compound your wealth and your life so you can give more or all of it away to help MVPs. Hey, I'm your host today, Brett Swartz. In every episode, we feature some of the world's top entrepreneurs, millionaires, and billionaires. They share their principles, values, secrets, and wisdom with us, providing each of us with the insights we need to reach the next level of success, faith, and impact. Hey, I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of the great state of California in the Sacramento area, my original hometown, and he is the co-founder of Marquee Media Solutions. It's a digital billboard and advertising, amazing company business in California. If you've ever seen these massive digital billboards, especially anywhere near the Sacramento Kings Arena, that are just beautiful, Jeff is the co-founder of Jeff Joaquin. I also have with me my good friend and top strategic alliance and financial advisor extraordinaire, Joe Walters, who's a CFP. And today we're going to be sharing Jeff's story to exiting a large business, a portion of the business, and deferring massive amount of capital gains taxes. We're going to find out so much here. Please welcome to the show with me, Jeff and Joe. Jeff, I'll start with you. How are we doing?
Good, Brett. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And Joe, how are you feeling after this Thanksgiving week? You're looking rested and ready to go?
yeah, excellent. It's a great time of year.
Absolutely. Great. And so, Jeff, we'll start with you and your story and your current focus. If you could just share a little bit more with the audience, a little bit more about a little bit of your history and the business. It'd be great to kind of hear that.
Sure. Well, I've got 40 years of practical business experience in the out-of-home advertising field. I started back in 1984 and moved around in California for different markets within Foster and Kleiser, Patrick Media Group, Eller Media Group, Clear Channel, and spent some time in Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, and the great state of Illinois, and ran the Chicago market. I always loved the business, but I had been beholden to working for these big companies for a long time. And then at the ripe age of 54, I decided it was time to make a move because I wasn't advancing in my career with these big companies, and moved to Sacramento, where I knew it was the barriers to entry were a little bit less, a little easier to get in, and the cost to start with landowners was a little bit less than Los Angeles or San Francisco or Chicago, for example. So moved here, built one billboard in 2015, and it gave us the proof of concept and the springboard to win an RFP that the Sacramento Kings held for 13 digital billboards along the freeways. The reason that was important, the Sacramento Kings at that time were going to leave Sacramento and move to Seattle or Oklahoma City with a new ownership group. Ron Burkle was one of the people looking. He had to recuse himself because he owned many sports franchises at the time. So the Kings, with Mayor Kevin Johnson, they put together a plan. They brought in a new ownership group. And one of the strategies was, how do we keep the Kings? Well, we can give them parking money. We can give them entitlements. We can give them some tax breaks. And they did all that. One of the other things that was very unusual and new at the time was, let's give them the rights on city-owned land adjacent to freeways to build billboards. And then the Sacramento Kings can monetize it in any way they want. They can sell the ads themselves, use them however they want, or they can parse it out to somebody else and get paid rent. So they put it out to an RFP. It took a year for us to win that RFP. And when we won it, we started building the signs, and having the NBA and the Sacramento Kings as a partner for a small startup was a great thing. It put us on the map. We started marketing the heck out of it on LinkedIn and through direct mail approaches, email approaches. And that was 2016 when we won that RFP, after our first billboard was built in 2015. In 2016, all of a sudden, we've got 14 billboards. They're digital. Each digital billboard has 8 spots per side. So they're in some of the best spots in all of Sacramento. So we started winning national business, regional business. We had some of the best clients in all of Sacramento. We had Disney as an exclusive client on our billboards that the big companies in Sacramento did not. We entrenched ourselves in the community, went to a lot of political fundraisers, charitable work, and things were going great until the year 2000 when COVID hit. Our full motion billboards around the Kings Arena, and these are 30 feet by 115 feet. They can have full motion. It's allowed by law, which was wonderful. But when COVID happened and nobody's out in their cars, nobody's going to Kings game, it was a tough spot for us. And then after COVID started to ease up, 2021, 2022, we started ramping back up, and that was phenomenal. And the Kings went on a playoff run, as Joe might recall. And we had the good fortune, and one of the best marketing things that ever happened to us was we showed all home playoff games on our screens across the street from the arena. We had an outdoor audience of 20,000 plus people standing, cheering, watching the games. And these games also had sound on the games. So while there were 22,000 people inside the arena, we had a little over 20,000 outside. Good police protection. Everything was well planned. Everybody behaved well. It was a great news story. So we took over 10 news clips we got from all the local TV stations and national coverage, sent them to clients, posted them on LinkedIn, and then we skyrocketed from there. And after that,
Oh, can't hear you, Brett.
Brett, can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. So hold that thought. This is incredible, Jeff. I want to kind of capture a little bit what you've said so far. So you had the vision, right, to go to Sacramento, a little bit maybe a lesser known market, or at least less barriers to entry for prices of land and prices of these kind of things. And what started on one big contract in partnership with the Sacramento Kings was parlayed into over 14 digital billboards. And the momentum, talk about the power of momentum, Jeff. Like, as an entrepreneur, right, and the ability for you to see an idea and plant that seed, water it, and then see the momentum of this snowball effect just build up. Talk about the importance of just momentum when it comes to building a business.
I think momentum's key, and it did give us a lot of strategy, a lot of momentum, especially with the Kings in the playoffs. And we were able to capitalize on running those games, having a large audience, because it basically showed people in New York, LA, Chicago that, wow, people really do see these signs. People will stand and watch them for 3 hours straight, where a freeway billboard might be an 8-second read is typically what you get when you're going by at 60, 65 miles an hour. And we got a lot of national attention for that. So our national business grew after that. We gained brands like Crown Royal, Dickel Bourbon. We had, what was it? The electric car, Lucid Air advertised with us, which was amazing. And that's a luxury, very expensive car. And Sacramento's not viewed as luxury like Beverly Hills in New York. We don't always get included on the market buy list for that. We're the number 20th DMA. So all of a sudden we're winning these national buys, and our competition started taking note. Well, what are these little guys doing that we're not doing? Well, I think we had a lot of hustle, and B, we had some great inventory, and we marketed it locally and nationally really well, where the big guys weren't doing that at the time. So what led us to meeting you and Joe was in 2022, February, we put a book out through M&A guys, and we had 4 great bids. The largest bid, well, one of the bids, for example, wanted us to stay and operate, and it was a lower bid. And I was wanting more of an exit strategy. My partner was in line with that. And
pause real fast on this, though. So talk about, you built the momentum, you get all success, the value of the business goes through the roof, right? And then you're looking, you started at 54 when you came to Sacramento,
yep.
But you're looking at this transition, right? What was the main purpose? Like, what mattered to you the most on this next transition for you? I'm just kind of curious. Take us to that place where you're like, okay, I'm ready to harvest some of this. I'm ready to maybe to diversify some of this. I'm ready to get some more freedom. I'm ready to maybe bring in a partner who's going to help to expand it. Like, walk us through just that strategy, because you're obviously very skilled on building business and having strategy. for positioning, for all the things that you've done so far. But sometimes I feel like that's one of your key gifts, right? So we don't want to take that for granted. So help us through that when you're going, okay. And the timing too. This was about what, 2.5, 3 years ago now, right? So
Yeah, 2 years.
yeah,
December
2 years ago. So the
2022.
timing was really good for this too, but for the market kind of shifted a little bit. So just
Yeah.
take us to the strategy piece here. I think this is important.
Well, those are all great adjectives and they're all true. At the time, we knew the market was peaking. We had huge revenue gains, and then our financial backers started to see, well, interest rates are going up, things are getting a little quirky and choppy in the market. We put the book out. It took till May to have a signed LOI. It took till December. When we started in February, we closed in December of 2022. So we were actually in fear that the deal might not go the right way because interest rates were starting to rise.
Mhm.
And fortunately, we had a solid offer. We took the highest offer, obviously, and we took the offer from the client that could close. And the next step for me was taking some chips off the table, selling a tranche of the business, harvesting some profits like you suggested. We didn't sell all of our assets. We kept some to operate, live to fight another day, get them to their full maturity and their full value, and then sell them as well. And that will hopefully happen maybe in 2025. But long story was, the dilemma was, I'm in a joint LLC with my partner. The tricky thing is, and we set these assets up, so as 40-year assets. They're considered real estate. So we could 1031 exchange. But the tricky thing is that I didn't know at the time, naively, when you're in a joint LLC, your partner has to agree to 1031 exchange into whatever you want a 1031 exchange. So he didn't want to do that. He got nervous. Then I said, what about a Delaware statutory trust, which is a REIT-based thing? And I was going to do that. He seemed interested, but he chose not to do that. He took all the cash and paid a huge, huge tax burden, which I could not swallow. So that's when meeting Joe and talking to Joe about, wealth management and the future and setting up our legacy and our trust for the family, he brought up the deferred sales trust. And the deferred sales trust just it checked all the boxes because I could do it as a sole proprietor. I could do it as a joint LLC and roll it in and make it a very seamless transaction. And not bragging, but the portfolio's done 36% year to date in the 2-year period. So that's better than I probably would have done with the Delaware statutory trust, better than I would have done with the 1031 exchange. And my other partner does a lot of 1031 exchanges. That's what he understands. I still could not do it being in a joint LLC. I couldn't parlay the money in with him. So the DST was the only viable choice.
Pause for a second. This is so cool. I'm gonna bring in Joe in now, right? So Joe, you meet Jeff, you see the success, you see, and you're helping him to work through this. And I remember we're sitting in Sacramento in your office. Right? I'm going to meet with Jeff, and we're going through the strategy, right? And your pros and cons. So walk through for the listener, as a certified financial planner that you are, and all the work that you do there in Sacramento, and for your clients, just helping to navigate the complexities of a sale, as well as working with capital gains tax solutions to be able to provide the deferred sales trust to get this flexible outcome for Jeff, who's an entrepreneur, who's ready to not lose that momentum. Right? He has the momentum. He's keeping the momentum. Crushing with tax is 37 to 40% of the gain on a huge exit. Crushes momentum. So walk us through that piece of it, Joe, and how you're working with Jeff to educate him.
Yeah, like most business owner, the high concentration of the business asset of the total net worth is typically like 75, 85%. So the most important transaction a business owner is going to go through is exiting some of these assets. And so that transaction, there was a couple options that we discussed. And one of them was a 721 exchange as well, which was a publicly traded real estate investment trust was offering, hey, we'll take your real estate and swap it with shares of this REIT. And that has its pros and cons, right? Like you did get out of the asset without paying the capital gains, which you're right, it's 37.1% in California. So it's just insane that you work your whole life on these things. And then the moment you exit, the government scoops up the 37 or almost 40% of an asset that you've been paying payroll taxes. You've been doing good. You've been offering goods and services to the public on. And so to avoid that, to mitigate that for clients is a joy. So 721 was an option, still concentrated in real estate, also concentrated in one real estate investment trust. You have to have a lot of trust in that entity. But the Delaware statutory trust also still in real estate, and need to trust the entity that's managing that, and the expenses can be 12, 15%. So the DST, the deferred sales trust, was the best option in this scenario. We were able to mitigate all of the taxes of the capital gains. We were able to establish an income cash flow for life and for beneficiaries. And we were able to invest in a passive strategy. So the portfolio I manage on behalf of Jeff's family is I'll never call him for vacancy issues or remodels or tenant improvements or any of those things. So it did check all the boxes, and it's worked out really well.
Yeah, and on top of that too, talk about this returns. Just this year was 36%, right? But backing up, you as the financial advisor say, hey, I think, as your expertise, you recommended, some investments. That's your role within the deferred sales trust. And Jeff approves them and is a trustee, and we approve them, right? But your allocation has been masterful. But one of those picks, can you talk about that one stock that it was a good pick and how it's turned out so far?
Yeah, so I've been managing portfolios for over 2 decades. I come from a family of stock investors, asset managers, and so it's been a joy, to go through many cycles. .com crisis, financial recession. So we build portfolios that are designed to be innovative and take advantage of where the growth is going, but also to have some structure to it, so that if we go through a cycle, an unexpected event, that we have a lot of risk mitigation as well. So part of that innovation, as we all know, is artificial intelligence. And so to take advantage of artificial intelligence and where things are going, the kind of picks and shovel of that gold rush is NVIDIA. It is the company that will have the processors necessary, the fastest processors necessary to take advantage of AI. So there's $2 trillion worth of servers that need to be overhauled, and there's this race to catch up. In every industry, AI is going to improve what companies do, from ag to medicine, everywhere. AI is going to improve what you do and make you more efficient and faster. So competitors are working hard to innovate to get NVIDIA chips. Someone like Elon Musk says, "I'll get as many NVIDIA chips as they will sell me." And you look at Moore's law, which says that the processing speed is doubling, every year and a half. I mean, it's just moving at light speed. Well, NVIDIA's in the last 8 years, their chip speed's up 1,000 times in speed. I mean, they're on the screaming edge of the logarithmic curve on this thing. So it's really exciting. They also do software that's necessary for AI development and their hardware, and you can't get one without the other. So they have a real nice moat around their business for competitive, structuring. It's really
So
good
I'm going to
stuff.
jump in here real fast. And so what we're saying here is Jeff was able to sell his part of his business, defer massive amounts of capital gains taxes, and then the timing was well, and that the market was high for real estate or towards the edge there, and then still the video had a decent price to buy at, right? I mean, maybe it's still a decent price to buy at, But the point is, the big part of the trust was able to invest into this stock and ride this wave of the AI. In other words, what the deferred sales trust offers, if you're listening to this, is the ability to sell high and diversify, but also sell high and take advantage of opportunities at the right time in different asset classes, right? You're not forced to have to stay just in real estate. And for those who bought, and did 1031s 2 years ago, I almost promise you probably 75, 80% are regretting that they did, right? Because the prices have dropped, debt has resetting, and it's not a great outcome. Whereas Jeff was able to sell, diversify, take some chips off the table. And by the way, he still might buy some real estate in the future. He still might buy another business in the future. He's not restricted from doing that. He can still do that all tax deferred. So keep going, Joe. Wrap up now. You're meeting with Jeff. You're sitting down with him. You're going through this, right? And you're showing him the flexibility of it. At what point did you know that, yeah, I think this is a perfect fit for Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, this is a partial exit of the business. And so I know that Jeff's younger partner doesn't have the same kind of goals. So he's able to kind of split out what he wants to do versus his partner, which I think is smart. But it provides that replacement of income for him. And obviously, the tax mitigation was at the forefront of what we were trying to accomplish. And so as he's continuing to exit the business, we're able to use different tools to mitigate those taxes. So that's when I knew it was the right choice, and the timing was good. We didn't have a signed LOI yet, so there was time to get us structured, and working with the team, Brett's team, and the attorneys, I think was really helpful because they jumped on not only creating the structure, but looking at the buy-sell agreement and making sure everything that was the asset purchase agreement, that whole thing was structured with the help of the council, which I thought was helpful.
Absolutely. That packs it back to Jeff now. So Jeff, you're exiting, you're meeting with Joe, you've known about the 1031 exchange, you've known about the real estate, you've known about the Delaware Statutory Trust, you're hearing about the Deferred Sales Trust for the first time. You're looking at unlocking some, we call it TPI, truly passive income, not having to trade your time or your energy or your stress or your liability for dollars, right? And Joe comes to you this thing with this Deferred Sales Trust. Take us to the moment when you're hearing about it for the first time, and then take us through the process of getting comfortable for what it was, what it is, and ultimately making the decision to go ahead with our team.
That's one of the best questions because it sounded great on paper, and you can take 100% of your sale and put it into this trust that can earn money versus taking and paying a 40% penalty tax, essentially. So that's a beautiful idea. I did a lot of research, talked to people. You gave me some people to talk to, and they were very honest and direct. I talked to some of my friends that have a great financial background. But here's the funny thing. So many of these people didn't know anything about a deferred sales trust. They were so skeptical. They thought I was going to blow all my money. How can you do this? Maybe only put half your money in and take half and pay the taxes, or do something else. I've never heard of this. It sounds too good to be true.
Mhm.
And now, after 2.5 years, they're all a little bit jealous. They're asking me more about the deferred sales trust. I've referred some to you. I don't know if they're ready yet. One of them wants to sell his primary residence that will probably have a $4 million capital gain. He won't do it because he doesn't want to pay the gain. He just doesn't want to pay the gain on that. And so he's trying to think of clever ideas like, oh, maybe I rent it out for 2 years and I can then 1031 exchange it. A, as you said earlier, that's a lot of work. B, you could get yourself in trouble with the IRS. And he's 60. That just seems like a lot of headache. So I think more and more people will investigate the deferred sales trust just because it's pretty seamless, and it easily integrated into our buy-sell agreement with the company that purchased our assets. And they spent, I can tell you, on all their legal fees and holdbacks and reps and warranties, they spent over $1 million in legal fees on their side. The DST was very reasonable. It's kind of a set fee. It worked out, and it was I thought it was very easy, and has been probably one of the best business decisions I've ever made.
Oh, that's really helpful. And people want to learn more about this, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can pick up the book, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. And then you can reach out to Joe Walters as well, because we are in business to help all of the business owners, just like Jeff, who are exiting massive, massive capital gains taxes. By the way, it also works for Bitcoin. It works for primary homes. We did an $8 million primary home out of Palo Alto. We did a $13 million car wash business sale out of San Diego. We've done Bitcoin. We've done Ethereum. We've done public stock, private stock. If you have massive NVIDIA stock, we can help you with that. It works for any asset of any kind, but you need to get started and get connected and understand what it is and how it works. And if it be a good situation for you, you need to go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can also reach out to Joe Walters as well. So Joe, back to you here. So now we're looking at it. Jeff's feeling good. We're structuring everything. It's flowing. Was there any hiccups that you recall, either with Jeff's CPA? Maybe we asked this Joe too, or anyone that was out there. Walk us through the whole thing, because there's something like it's too good to be true, and then there's the fee part of it, and then there's the controls with the trustee. Those are typically the three main things. But Joe, walk us through a little bit of the educational process with Jeff and/or just with other clients that you've talked with about this.
Yeah, I think the too good to be true thing is very common. And so when we're talking about it, it's like, well, there's precedence, there's history. It's over 25 years of being a tool that's been used. Billions of dollars have gone through it, thousands of transactions. And it's interesting because high net worth people tend to just follow what everyone else is kind of doing. So they ask around and they hear about this and that. And they're like, okay, if he's done it, that guy I know, he's really smart. So I'll follow that. And then they ask around on this one and they haven't heard of it. There's also an interesting a version of the of the deferred sales trust, which is entirely different, that people hear about and they get them confused and they go, well, that's not allowed. That's a listed transaction on the IRS. And it's basically where you would take an asset, you put it into this trust, and then you borrow all the money back out. So at the end of the day, you sold a $10 million asset and you've got 10 million in your bank. And there's this trust that you owe interest to. And it's like, that's not what we're talking about. That's obviously not allowed. And the IRS sees right through that. So people here, they get that kind of confused. And then you're right. There's also a trustee in between you and the asset to keep an arm's length distance. So you don't have the complete freedom to like if it was a bank account or a brokerage account. It's not the same, because if it was, then that would be an issue of control and taxation. So I think those things are easily discussed and figured out when we bring in the experts.
Absolutely. Back to Jeff now. So Jeff, on that, did anything resonate there as we were going through, now that it's been 2.5 years, to be able to collectively as a team here, make investments decisions, help you, help the trust to grow, to be able to pay you back? Has there been anything, I guess, that from when we started to where we're at now, where you're like, oh, I wish I would have known that? Or how has the experience been, Jeff, when it comes to the controls with the trustee?
I think it's been great. And to your point about NVIDIA before, I didn't honestly know what NVIDIA was, although I saw the name of it on my son's computer games when I opened up the box. Oh, it's an NVIDIA chip. I didn't know what it was, though.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Joe buys it at a very good price. And I watch it run up to $1,200 a share before it splits. I'm on a ski mountain in Utah with my buddies, and my two smartest buddies are in the stock. The other ones they knew about it, but weren't in it. And we're just like high-fiving each other when it hits $1,200 and having a toast. Yeah, I think the nervousness people have when, I'm going to take a big chunk of my money, I'm going to have this trustee guy hold it. It seems like it works with the IRS, and there are fees. But when you really do the math on the fees and what you're getting, the fees I don't want to say they're inconsequential, because that's not true, but they're a lot better and massively lower than paying the 37.5% to 40% tax. And all your money is growing and multiplying versus, only 60% of it. So that's a huge factor to me. I think it's been a great relationship. I did run it by our tax people and our CPA people. They understood it. And since the DST does the tax return, they don't have to be burdened with figuring out the tax burden on it. What they have to look at is all the filings from the stock transactions. And I think it was like 145 pages or something. And they obviously figured that out pretty quickly. I think they're fans of the DST. I'm sure they recommend it to a lot of people. Some people that I've talked to say the state of California, namely Gavin Newsom, made deferred sales trusts illegal in California effective 2023. I'm not sure that's actually true, but there's still a lot of misinformation out there. I think, as Joe said, a lot of people are still, oh, my buddy's a 1031 exchange guy, that's what I'm going to do. Oh, my buddy did a charitable remaining trust, or oh, my buddy did I don't know if they're still around, the Nevada trust. But this, for me, had the optimal and the most flexibility, and it's been great to watch the portfolio grow. You can slice a report any way you want to slice it. And conveniently, Joe is only 2 doors down in my office building on the same floor. And I'm going to see him at a Christmas party later today.
That's right. That's right.
Such a great share. Joe, do you want to add into that? And I'll also touch on the California thing, which does get kind of confused here in a second. But Joe, you want to add anything to what Jeff just said?
Well, I think as a portfolio manager and someone looking out for my clients from a tax perspective, one of the things I like is NVIDIA's had this huge run up, and it became about 12%. It just kept moving upward, as a percentage of the portfolio. And so as much as I love that stock, it's my baby, I'm selling off at tops to try to take advantage of these gains. Well, in a trust that creates taxes. But what's fascinating about the DST is the fact that the interest payment to the income beneficiary is a tax deduction against the portfolio's income creation. So all of the money that we're sending out to the Joaquin family is actually a tax deduction against the event that's happened inside the trust. So when I sell, NVIDIA, even if it's a short-term capital gain, I would never do that to a client, because it adds to their income. And I would have to do other things, maybe write calls on it, maybe offset it with tax loss harvesting. But I don't have to worry about that because all of the taxes, I think all of the taxes, each year is different, are mitigated by the interest expense of paying out the Joaquin family, which is so
You
cool.
nailed it, right? This is so key for everyone who's listening here. And what we're talking about is how to make the DST an investment and not an expense. And one way to do that is to be able to sell high on and take some of the gains off of the NVIDIA stock, or, we've had clients go into Bitcoin, it's done really well lately, or other assets, and dollar cost average back out, if that makes sense, right? And still not have to suffer the consequences of tax in the given year, because what Joe is saying is the interest on the note. So let's just imagine this is a $10 million exit. Let's imagine the note was 8%. That's $800,000. That $800,000 interest can, whether it pays the note holder or not, it's an accrued interest, and this trust is a business trust that's able to accrue the interest on its tax return, and therefore it can expense it on its tax return. Therefore, it typically operates at a loss year in and year out. So what Joe is saying is he can buy and sell more freely, knowing that it's such an efficient way to harvest and not have to suffer the consequences of the tax in the given year. Now, as Jeff receives payments from the trust, he pays taxes on that, right? So this is tax deferral until he receives payments. But at the same time, he doesn't have to receive all 800,000 in a given year, right? We're doing a hypothetical here. These numbers are just hypothetical numbers to keep it simple here, but that's just an example for those that are looking at this. Now, to touch on the California thing. Yeah. So a couple of years ago, there was a notice that was sent to qualified intermediaries who were using all their alternatives to the deferred sales trust to, we call save, fail 1031 exchanges. And basically it was a notice stating that you can't do that in the way that they were doing that. And they weren't paying California basically their holdback for the amount. So we always would pay them on that amount because we've been doing it for a long time. We've never had a single change. In fact, we've had more audits in California than any other state in the country. And the biggest deal ever done was in Southern California, over $120 million deal. It was no change, no findings. So we've had no change, no finding audits, mostly in California. It's been perfect track record. But that notice was taken out of context by a blogger, and guess who they were? They were a 1031 blogger. And here's the secret. They don't want you to know about this, right? Because it takes away from their blockbuster method of 1031 exchange, and we have Netflix. And so it's kind of like the old Kodak story. Have you heard about this before, right? Where Kodak actually had digital photography they were able to do. They had the technology, but this founder saw it and he's like, oh, well, let's just put that under the rug here, right? And fast forward, Kodak being maybe one of the biggest ever, and at one point completely goes out of business, I think mostly. And now they think they're maybe coming back some. I'm not sure. The whole story there, Jeff probably knows better than that. But the point is, most of the 1031 exchange companies, they don't want you to know about this. Now, we do have a few that do work with us that are great, and they're very open-minded with what this is. And we set up what's called the best 1031 plan to give you both options. But the deferred sales trust is a proven legal strategy that has a perfect legal track record, and there's also lifetime audit defense provided. So that's just a little bit on that. So if anyone has any questions about that, you go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Okay, so Jeff, so we've closed, you deferred the tax. Now let's fast forward, right? Your vision for the future, for your family, for your wealth, for your legacy. You still have a huge percentage of ownership still in the business, right? In fact, death tax is a big thing here too that we haven't touched on. But as soon as you're above a certain dollar amount, you're facing what's called a death tax, where the stepped up basis is not solved for that. So talk about the future, Jeff, of just how big your company could still get, and and maybe we can work through this death tax thing to help people understand what's going on.
Well, our next exit could be in excess of $10 million. So that's another 10 plus right there. So that does kick you over the 11 million threshold very easily for estate taxes, which I don't really like to think about estate taxes at my young age now, Brett. But right. I think with the DST, which we haven't really talked about it at any kind of length, is you can have a DST 2.0 and or push the term down. I think our term is 10 years now, but I can extend it another 10 years or do 2.0, which I frankly don't understand what that is yet, but I know I could extend my current one for 10 years. And obviously my heirs could inherit that and hopefully not pay taxes because it's in the DST. That is something I'm thinking about. And I like the passive income from the DST currently. I'll probably always have some form of California-based income, regardless of where I live. but I'd like to live in a state where I don't pay California state income taxes. And that to me is, I think right now that's almost a 14% benefit. And it might go up depending on who the next governor is.
So, Joe, would you walk us through what Jeff just said too, especially with the relocation? If let's say Jeff or note holder or client would move out of California to like a Nevada, Texas, Florida, or lower tax state, what that means for them just on that pure amount right there, what Jeff just said.
Yeah, I mean, clients are typically retiring, especially high income. They're moving to states that have zero or much lower state income tax. And so California has been getting more and more aggressive on how do we, reap the income tax benefit in California of 13.3%, right? So yeah, there's, I know for Jeff and his family, there is real estate and other investments that will continue to accrue income in California be taxed here. However, with residency in a state like Florida, we could have, the income that comes from the DST be tax-free from a state perspective when he moves and gains residency.
Perfect. Yeah, you nailed it, right? So in other words, if you sell, defer all your capital gains taxes using the deferred sales trust, and then you relocate to a lower cost state, the interest on that trust that pays you is based upon that state in which you live in. And therefore, if you're a resident of a new state that's a lower tax, then it's going to be lower tax. Another way to make the DST an investment, not an expense. Vice versa too. If you were to move from Nevada and go to California and receive payments, then it's going to be higher. So now the capital gains tax still follows you in the sense that if Jeff chips into principal and takes a principal payment, then that would be partial California, partial federal, right? That stays with what's called nexus, right? And then to Jeff's point, yeah, we do have a DST 2.0 that can eliminate the death tax. Okay, it's a separate version of the deferred sales trust that upon sale, we get it outside of the taxable estate and the children can be the beneficiaries of that. On 1.0, the trust can be renewed every 10 years as a 10-year note, and the children can step into the shoes and continue the tax deferral and just pay taxes as they receive payments. And so these are the plannings that we want to walk you through so you understand that. Jeff, what else do you want to share that we haven't already shared, that just insights for someone who's looking at this and, they only have 30 or 60 days to go. I mean, I think we had maybe 90 days before you closed, right?
Yep,
but
yep.
I mean, they're up against the gun here. And then, maybe even like your partner who decided not to use the trust and just pay the tax. Now it's 2.5 years later, just maybe give them some encouragement to not be stuck in that fear state or but more in that like, hey, faith based upon this evidence they're hearing today to take that step. What would you encourage them with today?
Well, I think yourself and the attorney that Campbell Law uses are readily available almost at a moment's notice. We got Jake on the phone right away. He structured things right away based on the documents I gave him. It took the fear away, and you guys do move quick. I think the sooner you look at it, 90 days, 60 days in advance is better by far to plan it out. But if you found yourself, I can't do a 1031 exchange or it's not going to work out, you guys can make it happen in 2 weeks. So I think that's one of the beautiful things about it. And it's pretty seamless. The statements you get from your financial advisor, Joe, are nice. I don't really see any drawbacks, honestly. And it gives me the freedom of mind to continue what we're doing with the current billboard business. And one of the things, I talked to Joe about a lot is, we made a lot of money. Cash flowed well. We made a lot of money selling the company. But one of the things we're most proud of is the purpose we put in the business. During COVID, we lost 56% of our business during COVID. However, what we did with all that space is we helped every local downtown business we could with free advertisement to drive people to their restaurant, their storefront, their retail business. And we helped save some. We didn't save them all. But we wanted to put the space to good use. We wanted to help people. And we do an immense amount of charity work. We put a man up for his 103rd birthday so somebody could have a celebration, high school graduation photos, college graduation photos. We try to do as much as we can to celebrate life in Sacramento and what's important. And I think that's an invaluable thing. And when the billboards are eventually finally gone and we sold them, I will miss that because that's another kind of a legacy versus just wealth management for your family. That's something you did for a community that is really, I think, important. So that'd just be my only other side note.
Oh, it's so good. Just so good, Jeff, that you share that and you have a heart for that. And it sounds like you're really living in your passion, your purpose, and making an impact and doing that all with something that you're highly skilled in. I want to thank you for all that you're doing. And I want to thank you for being a client. Joe, any last words or thoughts for anyone who's on the edge and they're just like, my financial advisor hasn't heard of it, or my CPA hadn't heard of it, or, my real estate broker wants me to do the 1031, right? And like to give them something here to encourage them to, again, to step out and take the next step versus just, going with the status quo.
Yeah, there's a lot of money in motion right now. Baby boomers are exiting assets, exiting business, commercial real estate. Vacancies are still kind of, difficult. And so people are looking at what do they do with this? And if capital gains is keeping you from making that decision, then, talk to Brett. I'm happy to help. I have a website that illustrates all these things called legacyassetShield.com. And it's basically animations to help you visualize these things. Because as we're throwing around these concepts, sometimes it goes over people's head. I think the animations really help people visualize and see how these things are structured. And so, I love families like the Joaquin family that, you think about 40% of a major asset going to the government, and who knows how it gets spent. However, if it's kept in the family and they can continue to do great things to live out their legacy, I think it's such a joy. Money is only important when you're actually doing something meaningful with it, and whether that's caring for your family or giving to the community or helping charities. When you complement the deferred sales trust, which you said is creating taxable income for the client, although it's a tax shelter, an amazing tool, it is creating taxable income. So sometimes we'll complement the DST with a charitable instrument that will create tax deductions to offset that income. And now you've got two entities where rather than all that money dissipating into the ether of government, you have it in an entity that is providing for your family, creating income, leaving a legacy for your family, but also able to do a lot of great things for charity. And so there's all those tools are on legacyassetShelter.com. So.
Amazing. Joe Walter, I want to thank you too for being a top strategic alliance, a good friend. I want to thank you for fighting the good fight and helping families like the Joaquin family and being innovative for your clients to look at options and make wise investment decisions. Jeff, thanks again for being on the show. Joe, thanks for being on the show. And I also want to thank all of your listeners for listening to the episode of the Build It to Billions podcast. We're also streaming on Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast and YouTube channel. I want to encourage you to take the next step with us. Get the book, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. Reach out to me and Joe to discuss. If you've seen this episode, just make sure if you reach out to me, you're saying you saw Joe and Jeff and me here. That would be really, really helpful as well. Share this with someone that could change their life. It could help them unlock freedom and impact. It can help them exit, have an extra 30, 40, 50% of their proceeds that they otherwise would have paid in tax. And they ultimately can unlock more legacy. Thank you so much for listening or watching, everybody. And we'll talk to you again real soon. Bye now.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, guys, that's a wrap.